Tonight, at least 1 million more Nigerians are now displaced and seeking shelter in IDP camps because of the recent floods in the country, and that's according to the federal government. Bayelsa state government faults the criteria used by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs regarding the state most impacted by flooding. Christian Association of Nigeria asks Nigerians to work towards restoring the country to greatness as the body holds a National Prayer Day ahead of the 2023 general elections.
On Business News Tonight, the president of the African Development Bank warns African governments to stop using natural resources to secure infrastructure loans.
And on Sports News Tonight, World Football Governing Body FIFA advises participating teams to avoid being dragged into ideological or political battles against 2022 World Cup hosts Qatar.
Nation's capital, Nigeria Immigration Service dismisses 8 of its personnel, sanctions 18 others for various acts of indiscipline and corrupt practices.
In London, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused the Kremlin of resorting to energy terrorism as Russian troops make few gains on the battlefield.
Recent flooding across the country has left at least 1 million Nigerians homeless, thereby adding to the number of displaced persons in the country. But this is according to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Mrs. Sadiya Umar Farouk, while speaking at an event to mark the National Day of Internally Displaced Persons, IDPs, in Nigeria. The National Day for IDPs was set aside by the federal government in 2021 to raise awareness about the plight of displaced persons and find sustainable solutions to their problems.
Top government officials, including the Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, and the Minister of Women Affairs are among the dignitaries attending this event at the Presidential Banquet Hall to mark the 2022 National Day for Internally Displaced Persons. Nigeria hosts a huge number of internally displaced persons since the last decade, with the activities of insurgency in the northeast contributing significantly to a number of displacements in the country. According to the International Organization for Migration, the number of IDPs in Nigeria rose to 3.2 million in 2021. 2.9 million of this number are in the northeast, owing to the destructive activities of insurgents since 2012. However, the recent flooding across the country appears to have further increased the number of IDPs in Nigeria.
I empathize with the millions of Nigerians who have been impacted by the recent flooding episodes across the country. The devastating effects have sadly led to the displacement of over 1 million Nigerians nationwide.
The National Day for IDPs is set aside by the federal government since 2021 to raise awareness on the plight of internally displaced persons in the country and find durable solutions to their challenges.
To further demonstrate the government's commitment, the Commission's exit camp strategy, the National IDP policy, the implementation of the National IDP policy, the National Action Plan on the provision of durable solution, and the domestication of Kampala Convention will support our drive towards provision of durable solution while building resilience in our host communities, as well as ensuring persons of concerns developed better coping mechanisms.
The federal government will continue to collaborate with the United Nations, with the state governments and other partners to scale up this initiative to promote the return of IDPs to their respective communities in safety and with dignity.
Many internally displaced persons in Nigeria live in very deplorable circumstances without access to clean water, sanitation facilities, and healthcare services. Some IDPs who attended this event in Abuja want the government to look into their plight.
Last year, we've lost about 3 or 4 lives in my camp because of the outbreaks of cholera, and there is no agency. We are just living there by the grace of God and the help from the NGOs.
We have our big people, we have our senators, we have our people that, like now, our children that are not going to school. Many of the IDPs camps children are not going to school because they didn't register us for under government school.
Violent extremism and natural disasters such as flooding are the 2 principal causes of displacement in Nigeria. The hope at this event is that as the country marks the 2022 National Day for IDPs, attention will be paid to the root causes of these problems and find durable solutions to them.
Meanwhile, barely 24 hours after the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs ranked Bayelsa State outside the top 10 most impacted by the floods, the state government is faulting the criteria used by the federal government. While putting the number of displaced persons in the state at almost 1 million, the Commissioner for Information, Ayuba Duba, in a statement described the claim by the minister as spurious. He described the humanitarian minister's claim as disheartening but not surprising, especially with what he called a slow response to the humanitarian crisis despite the president's directive. The commissioner further said the federal government is relying on bogus data in contradiction of the clear reality that every local government in the state is impacted by the flood in varying degrees. And staying with Bayelsa State, where the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and former governor of the state, Mr. Timi Silva, is calling on politicians to stop politicizing the impact of the floods. The minister was speaking while on a visit to the state for an on-the-spot assessment of the level of human and infrastructural devastation which the state has experienced as a result of the floods.
The Minister of State for Petroleum arrives in Yenagoa to empathize with the people of the state on the hardship they have endured as a result of the 2022 flood. From the airport, he heads to the site of the failed portion of the Amasoma Road, which serves as the only access road to the Niger Delta University, which collapsed due to water pressure from the flood. The minister then proceeds to the Okogbe axis of the east-west road, which collapsed and has since become a death trap for commuters.
That decision was taken to ensure that the east-west road was speedily, the rehabilitation of the east-west road is speedily completed. But beyond that, I am here, in addition to that, to ensure that we empathize with our people directly and we are able to send some palliatives. I have always said that this is a recurrent problem. So we as Bayelsans must find a solution to this problem. As a country, as Bayelsa, we must find a solution to this problem because we cannot continuously have this problem on a year-on-year basis. Next year it will happen again. What will be the plight of our people? What is the level of the flood going to be next year? The year after next, there will be a flood. So as Bayelsans, we must come together across party lines and begin to discuss a solution to this problem. People should not politicize a disaster like this.
The IDP camp at Oxbow Lake in Yenagoa is the minister's next port of call.
All of us must join hands to contribute to the solution of this problem, and we should not sit around and be pointing fingers. As fishermen, you all know, if your boat is sinking, you don't sit and quarrel inside the boat. The canoe is sinking, you must all join hands together and ensure that you salvage the canoe first before you can discuss anything. So in this situation, Bayelsa is in a problem. If you fly over Bayelsa, you see the extent of the problem. It is very devastating and heartbreaking. And that is why all of us must come together and find a solution to this problem, not only for this year, but what is the solution to the flooding problem, permanent solution to the flooding problem.
The minister was accompanied by the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board and members of the All Progressives Congress in Bayelsa State.
Ahead of the 2023 general elections, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, is asking Nigerians to shun primordial sentiments and work towards restoring the country back to greatness. CAN President, His Eminence Dr. Daniel Oko, gave the charge in Abuja at a one-day national prayer program where he asked the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and those involved in the conduct of elections to ensure they deliver credible and peaceful polls. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Christians from different denominations have converged on the National Christian Center, Abuja, to intercede for Nigeria.
We shall own this land. We shall occupy this land until Jesus returns.
The prayers of the security, economic prosperity, unity and peace of the country, as well as the forthcoming general elections.
Father, deliver this nation from the bloodthirsty men and women everywhere in the name of Jesus Christ. Father, deliver, oh God, and save our nation from destructions in the name of Jesus Christ.
Intercession is also made for those in captivity, including the remaining Chibok schoolgirls, and Leah Sharibu was abducted from Dapchi in Yobe State.
We have witnessed in our nation.
Then the message of the day by the Catholic Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja, John Cardinal Onaikan, as he charges Nigerians not to relent in praying, especially for the restoration of the country.
We should not give up calling upon God to change the hearts and minds of all those making our lives difficult. It is more than time to give our belief in God a clearly positive human face in this our country, Nigeria, and rescue it from those who have been hijacking it for purposes of conflict, division, and violence.
An atmosphere of thanksgiving follows. Speaking to journalists, the president of CAN calls for unity among Nigerians as he expresses hope of a better Nigeria.
Everyone must be committed. The INEC officials, the politicians, their agents, the voters, the electorate. Everybody must be committed to having a very peaceful election and disregard all primordial sentiments and be focused on putting Nigeria back on the track of progress.
The Christian Association of Nigeria hopes this National Day of Prayer will usher in divine intervention that will translate into national peace and development of the country. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
For the chairman of Nigeria's Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, INEC is determined to put an end to what he describes as 11th-hour postponements of elections in the country owing to logistics difficulties. Professor Yakubu gave the commitment today during the inauguration of an electoral logistics committee in Abuja. The committee draws its membership from the armed forces and other federal agencies, including the Port Authority and the Nigeria Customs Service.
The establishment of the committee is born out of the Commission's effort to ensure the speedy and safe delivery of huge quantities of sensitive and non-sensitive materials for the 2023 general election. The logistics for the clearance, handling, custody, delivery, and distribution of enormous quantities of election materials is the biggest operation Nigeria undertakes every 4 years. For effective coordination, the Commission believes that every national asset must be mobilized for the exercise. We are determined that never again should elections be postponed at the 11th hour on account of logistics. This is why we are mobilizing every national asset and starting the engagement early. It is exactly 112 days to the next general election. So we learned a lot from what happened in 2019, and therefore the planning must start early so that we achieve the goal of delivering much of the materials long before the election.
In part two, after the break, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State again increases the number of political aids, this time to 200,000 plus. Ogun State government inaugurates the first phase of its multi-billion special agro-industrial processing zone in Ileshan. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our main stories. At least 1 million more Nigerians are now displaced and seeking shelter in IDP camps because of the recent floods in the country, and that's according to the federal government. Bayelsa State faults the criteria used by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs regarding states most impacted by flooding. Christian Association of Nigeria asks Nigerians to work towards restoring the country to greatness as the body holds a national prayer day ahead of the 2023 general elections. And former U.S. President Donald Trump to announce a 2024 presidential run after the country's midterm elections. The Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has again increased the number of his political assistants on political unit affairs, this time from 100,000 to 200,000. Governor Wike announced the increase while inaugurating the second and last batches of the initial 100,000 assistants from Rivers East Senatorial District in Port Harcourt, the state capital. The first batch of about 45,000 assistants from Rivers Southeast and Rivers West Senatorial Districts had earlier been sworn in by Governor Wike yesterday. The appointment of the unprecedented number of aides was first announced by the state government on October the 11th with an initial figure of 14,000. Governor Wike explains the reason for the appointments.
I told you, we have done a lot of infrastructure. There will come a time when we do stomach infrastructure. And this is part of stomach infrastructure. It is Rivers State money. If I invest Rivers State money in Rivers people, did I do wrong? No. Did I do wrong? No. Therefore, a lot of Rivers will have volunteered to be part of this work. And I can announce to you today, we have increased the number from 100,000 to 200,000. So, all the local government go home. Identify your people who will be part of this job to help Rivers State to see where we are in the Committee of Nations in this country. It is very, very important. And from the end of this month, you are taking your first salary. Your job is to go back to your units and find out what your people are saying in the various units. Let them tell Rivers people. Let them talk to us. Are we doing well or we're not doing well? What do they want? What are they lacking? Above all, they should tell us the feelings of Rivers people and tell us where to go to, because we don't want to make any mistake.
And over to Ogun State, where the government has inaugurated the first phase of the Ogun Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone located at Ileshan, a Kenyan local government area of the state. Addressing dignitaries at the occasion, the state governor, Mr. Dapo Abiodun, says the project is in line with the backward integration policy of the federal government. The project, when completed, is expected to generate 20,000 direct jobs and attract more investment opportunities to the state.
Processing zone.
The Ogun Agro-Industrial Processing Zone is a joint venture between the Ogun State government and Arise Integrated Industrial Platforms. The project is an integrated development initiative designed to accommodate production, processing, and marketing of selected commodities value chains. The two-pronged event attracted the presence of members of the Federal Executive Council, investors, heads of financial institutions, traditional rulers, and other critical stakeholders.
This initiative today demonstrates that we're taking ownership of that process and we're going to add value.
The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Adeni Adebayo, while acknowledging the potentials of the project, says it will reduce the pressure on the country's foreign exchange.
Nigeria is currently facing challenging times. Increased agro-industrialization is key to improving local food security and reducing the need for importation. It creates jobs and can also generate export revenue. I commend His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Ogun State, Prince Dapo Abiodun, for this pioneering feat that the state has achieved.
The project partner commends the foresight and the political will of the governor to see the project through.
This project will have a transformational impact for Ogun State and Nigeria by improving job creation and attracting more FDI into the country.
The host, Governor Dapo Abiodun, could not hide his excitement over the development, highlighting some of the initiatives and reforms to improve ease of doing business in the state.
For agro-processing and allied products, comprising of the entire agro ecosystem, that promises to generate over 30,000 direct job opportunities, and of course, individual prosperity. This will further strengthen the backward integration policy of President Muhammadu Buhari GCFR.
The event also witnessed the signing of the framework agreement between the state and Arise, as the governor was joined by other dignitaries to lay the foundation for the multi-billion-dollar project.
And for more on the news at 10, let's head over to our Abuja studio where Markwe Ogun Yusuf is sitting by. Hello, Markwe.
Hello, Kayode. Well, news from the parastatals leads our stories here tonight as the Nigeria Immigration Service, the NIS, has announced the dismissal of 8 of its personnel from the service, while 18 others were sanctioned for various offenses ranging from employment racketeering, sharp practices, dishonest conduct, among others. A statement by the service spokesperson, Kenneth Kure, says those affected include a chief superintendent of immigration who was ordered to go on compulsory retirement, while 9 others were demoted. The decision, he says, was taken following the approval granted by the Civil Defense Correctional, Fire and Immigration Services Board, which noted that the conduct of the personnel have remained grossly unbecoming and unacceptable as members of the service. In the courts, a federal high court in Kaduna State has dismissed a suit filed by one of the governorship aspirants in the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Sani Shaban, challenging the election of the party's governorship candidate for the 2023 elections, Senator Uba Sani. Mr. Shaban had, on June the 20th, filed a case challenging the legality of the emergence of Senator Sani at the APC governorship primary election held on May the 24th this year, alleging that the election was conducted without legal and due delegates. But delivering his judgment today, the presiding judge, Justice Mohammed Umar, dismissed the suit for lack of jurisdiction. Counsels to Mr. Shaban and Senator Sani react to the ruling of the court.
Whether right or wrong, he's entitled to his opinion. Like we say, we must respect it. We appreciated the industry has put. Honestly, it's not an easy thing to do that. As always, everything comes from God. God in His infinite wisdom has determined that this is how this journey for now will end. What lies next is entirely to God.
The judge in his wisdom in delivering his ruling to our objections stated that if just one of the several objections that we have raised succeeds, there will be no need to go into the other objections. And one of them succeeded, and that ended the matter. We are happy not because we have won, we are happy because judiciary is working. And that is what everybody should be happy happy about. That a matter that was filed just very recently, not minding the fact that there are still some few months to go in determining the matter by virtue of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the court was still able to, in a very short time, consider all arguments and deliver its judgment and ruling accordingly.
Meanwhile, Justice Iang Ekwo of the Federal High Court here in Abuja has ordered an interim forfeiture of 40 landed properties belonging to the former Deputy Senate President Ike Ekweremadu, who is currently in custody in the United Kingdom. Justice Ekwo made the order following an ex parte motion by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. In a short ruling on the motion, the judge ordered the anti-graft agency to publish the interim forfeiture order of the properties in the National Daily within 7 days from the date the order was given. Justice Ekwo specifically asked anybody interested in the properties to indicate within 14 days of the publication. He subsequently adjourned to December the 5th this year for a report if there is any objection from any member of the public regarding the properties. The interim forfeiture covers 10 of Mr. Ekweremadu's properties in Enugu, 3 in the United States of America, 2 in the United Kingdom, 1 in Lagos, 9 in Dubai, and 15 located in the Federal Capital Territory. The former Deputy Senate President and his wife are currently standing trial in the United Kingdom over organ harvesting charges. And still from the court, a former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos, Mr. Olasupo Shashore, has again been arraigned before the Federal High Court on fresh money laundering charges involving 109.8 million naira. The senior advocate of Nigeria is facing a 14-count criminal charge along with his personal company, Middlesex Investment Limited. The alleged offense is said to be contrary to Section 10 of the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011. The charge sheet also indicates that Mr. Shashore allegedly committed a breach of money laundering laws by transferring $300,000 single lodgement into his company account in November 2017. He is the sole signatory to that account and is alleged to have failed to report to the EFCC twice on invitation. Mr. Shashore, however, pleaded not guilty to the offenses alleged to have been committed in Abuja along with his company. Justice Iang Ekwo subsequently fixed March the 13th to 17th, 2023 for prosecution. The trial judge further ordered parties in the suit to put their houses in order ahead of the trial dates. Still ahead on the news at 10, President of the African Development Bank warns African governments to stop using natural resources to secure infrastructure loans. That's some business news. Join us again.
Mr. Olusegun Omoseyin has assumed office as the 25th chairman of the Nigerian Insurers Association. At the investiture ceremony in Lagos, Mr. Omoseyin, who is also the chief executive officer of Old Mutual Nigeria Life Assurance Company Limited, says he will focus on 4 strategic pillars, which include market discipline and respect for agreements. Mr. Omoseyin adds that he will ensure that member companies play by the rules of market discipline.
And standing close to me,
the creme de la creme of the nation's insurance industry are gathered here. It's the investiture ceremony of the 25th chairman of the Nigerian Insurance Association. For an industry that raked in 508 billion naira gross premium in 2021 and paid their total claims of 224 billion naira, representing 44% of total industry premium, there is still room for improvement.
You will all agree with me that though the sector is beginning to experience improvement in terms of patronage and claims payouts, the perception of the industry by majority of the public is still not what it should be. This is unacceptable, and it is high time we change the narrative collectively as an industry. And I again challenge the new leadership of the NIA to take on this task.
With a charge to the new chairman to hit the ground running, it's time to formally hand over the symbol of office.
Yes, the senior of office is leaving the immediate past chairman, Mr. Ganiu Musa, and is joining them to place it on the new chairman, the brand new chairman, the latest chairman of NIA. Please let's have a resounding applause.
The man of the moment sure has his work cut out.
We shall focus on the 4 following key strategic pillars: market discipline, market development, and respect for market agreements. During my tenure, we will collaborate with world players to enforce market discipline among member companies.
And practitioners are confident of better days ahead.
We wish him the very best. There's no doubt we all have confidence that he's going to take the association to the next level. Other people have laid the foundation. It's left for him and people coming after him to build on the solid foundation that has been laid.
With a new leader set to run the affairs of the sector for the next 2 years, the Nigerian Insurance Association is set to continually upscale its market development initiatives through strategic engagements at all levels.
Well, Life Continental Lager has kicked off its credential campaign tagged Double Brewed for that premium taste. The campaign kicked off at a Seed to Sip conference held at the Nigerian Breweries PLC, Ama Brewery in Enugu, where the brand also took consumers and other stakeholders on a tour around the facility for an experience of the brewing process of Life Lager beer. According to the brewery manager for Ama Breweries, engineer Peter Ani, the initiative is part of efforts to continually serve consumers with quality satisfaction and sustain its promise of progress.
It's a Seed to Sip conference organized by the Life Continental Lager beer to kick off its credential campaign tagged Double Brewed for that premium taste. The event brings together consumers and retailers of the Life Lager beer, government representatives and management and staff of the Nigerian Breweries PLC in Enugu State for the experience. According to the brewery manager, engineer Peter Ani, the program aims to reassure customers of the brand's commitment to top-notch service.
Nigerian Breweries has established a niche for consistent innovation. We have been producing super rich, high quality, and deeply satisfying products. The Life Continental beer remains a brand that strongly connects with the Igbo culture.
For the regional business manager, the brand represents progress.
This Seed to Zip that you are seeing here is not by mistake. It is for you to understand clearly that life is a beer for progress. That is why it has been nicknamed amongst all of us here, Maya Ogun.
Your barley goes in mash tun, processed in mash tun.
In different batches, consumers and retailers are taken to a facility tour with a brief explanation on how Life beer goes from being seed to a finished product that is ready for sipping.
I learned a lot, and I promise MBL and I promise my customers from today go on, Life is #1. It's not harmful to human. Everything about Life Lager beer is okay and excellent.
The State Commissioner for Tourism reiterates government's commitment to providing an enabling environment for the businesses to thrive.
Wealth creation is phenomenal in terms of job creation, in terms of the wealth creation. It's in terms of revenue generation too for the state. It constitutes a veritable base of revenue for our state. So in that case, we are known for safety. Our people are very hospitable.
The brand says its slogan, Life for Progress, is a constant reminder to consumers of its support for their growth, just as the brand itself is on a journey to making progress with its products.
For more business news is next on the News at 10 with Willie Bunk.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Coyote. The president of the African Development Bank, that's the AFDB, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has called for more transparency, accountability and efficiency in the management of public loans in Africa. Dr. Adesina, who made this call at the 2022 African Investment Forum in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, warned African governments to stop using natural resources to secure their infrastructure loans. The AFDB president also expressed concern that rising public debts due to unsustainable public infrastructure financing plans would mortgage the future of some countries. He therefore appealed to the countries to open their space for private equity inflow and key into the huge potential of the public-private partnership to bridge the huge infrastructure gap on the continent. The need for Nigeria to add value to its primary products and be more competitive was the focus of participants today at the start of the Lagos International Trade Fair in Lagos. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mr. Adeni Adebayo, says businesses in Nigeria benefit from a low-tax environment as the ministry seeks to review trade policy. Meanwhile, the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry believes a lot more has to be done to attract more private capital investments.
The Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is reviewing and updating our national trade policy in order to firmly establish Nigeria as a worldwide trading hub and a regional leader. This policy will aim to maximize our economic output, expand infrastructural development, promote business growth, industrialization, and entrepreneurship.
Our economic and investment policies must be right, and our institutions must be investment friendly. We need to fix our structural, institutional policy challenges, and of course our regulatory issues impeding private sector development in our great country.
Now, the domestic carrier Dana Air has announced that it will resume flight operations on the 9th of November after a successful conclusion of the audit organized by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. In a statement, the airline says it is now well positioned to offer safe and reliable flying experience to loyal guests, while adding that unused tickets now have a one-year validity. Before now, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority had suspended the air transport license and air operator certificates of Dana Airlines indefinitely following the outcome of a financial and economic health audit carried out on the airline by the regulatory authority. Now, the equities market did manage to eke out some gains in today's trading session as investors took advantage of low stock prices. Laddie Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, final trading day of the week and we're able to get a green close. And it's a mild 0.07%, still at the 44,000 level, adding to the 1.23% we got earlier in the week. Market cap 24.112 trillion naira there. Let's look at the activity chart. It's all green across board there. Value there 4.59 billion naira, much more than we had yesterday, and the volume also a lot more than we had in volume traded yesterday. Deals 3,472. Let's look at the top gainers counter there. FTN Cocoa Processors topping the counter, 34 Kobo, up 9.68%. And some of the major stocks that had losses yesterday, like Geregu, added today, lifting the market with that mild 0.07% we saw. Still a negative market breadth. There was 13 stocks gained against 14 decliners. Apparently, the weekly performance should be positive. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
And that's it on Business News. It's back to Coyote for the rest of the news at 10.
Well, thank you, Will. On the foreign scene, former President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, is eyeing the White House again and considering announcing his 2024 presidential bid after the midterm elections. Mr. Trump came close to confirming the run in Iowa on Thursday. We'll hear Simon Pusey with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused the Kremlin of what he calls energy terrorism as Russian troops make few gains on the battlefield. Mr. Zelensky said 4.5 million people were now without power following Russian attacks on its energy network. In recent weeks, Russia has carried out large-scale missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian power facilities. The strikes come as officials say Russian troops are likely to withdraw from the key southern city of Kherson. New footage released by the Russian Defense Ministry of the final inhabitants of Kherson being evacuated ahead of an anticipated push by Ukrainian forces. Imran Khan's party has called for nationwide protests after Pakistan's former Prime Minister was shot and wounded. Mr. Khan is recovering in hospital after being shot in the leg on Thursday at a protest march in Wazirabad in the northeast of the country, an attack which has drawn international condemnation. One person was killed and at least 10 injured in the attack on his convoy. The attack on Mr. Khan has electrified the country, which the cricketer turned politician led until April, when he was ousted by a parliamentary vote of no confidence. China's President Xi Jinping has met with the visiting German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Friday at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Xi noted that Scholz is the first European leader to visit China after the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, and that it is his first official visit to China as the federal chancellor. Meanwhile, Mr. Scholz urged China to use its influence on Russia to stop the war in Ukraine. The two sides also both vowed to deepen bilateral cooperation in various fields in the future. Foreign powers have hailed the truce signed by the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan leaders to end the brutal war there, but questions remain over whether it will succeed. One refugee who lost everything he had managed to escape from Tigray to Kenya, but had to leave his children behind. He said the cessation of hostilities is unlikely to offer lasting peace.
I don't know what happened to them. It has been 2 years. I haven't heard anything from them. They live around the border with Eritrea, and that's the most unreachable place. No communications, no power, no banking system. I don't know even if they are alive. I feel it may give them a temporary relief, which is good, but I believe it doesn't bring a lasting peace.
Staff at the microblogging company Twitter have started to post online that they believe they have lost their jobs. Here, London's Twitter headquarters with the blinds down and the doors locked. Before long, employees began posting on the social networking platform they were no longer employed at the firm. They're tweeting using the hashtag #LoveWhereYouWorked and a saluting emoji to say they're leaving. It's thought around 50% of staff have been fired in the shakeup since Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover last week.
I am absolutely sure that Elon Musk is, he knows what he's doing, and that the change in the company is driven by his goals and what he wants to do with the company. I think those people in the company, those employees, they are in a very tricky situation, because for them it means a significant change to their work lives, significant change to their private lives, and for them it will be a question of whom they're going to be working for in the future and what they want to do with that.
And animal lovers have poured into the Belgian town of Saint-Hubert to attend a yearly animal blessing ceremony organised by the Catholic Church in the Ardennes region.
Elle appelle Rio, que Saint-Hubert te bénisse et te protège.
The Dean of Saint-Hubert's Basilica, Philippe Gus, said the tradition goes back hundreds of years when people sought protection from incurable diseases. After a mass punctuated by choir chants and a hunting horn player's performance, animal owners gathered outside the former Abbey Church in the hope their pet would receive the canon's blessing. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Well, thanks, Simon. Now for a trip around the world of sports, here's Victor Mathias.
Indeed, Kairi, let's now begin that trip with FIFA, where they have called on teams at the World Cup in Qatar to focus on football. Now, Qatar has come under sustained attack over its human rights record, its treatment of foreign workers and other issues. But FIFA Secretary General Fatma Samura says football should not be dragged into every ideological or political battle that exists.
People can consider Qatar as a conservative society, like my own country in Senegal. But let me tell you one thing. Qataris are the most hospitable people you can find on earth. The food is great. The tea is beautiful. And when you will be walking along this beautiful Corniche, you will see something that you have never seen before. You will see magic. You will see light. You will see flavor, you will see smiles.
In England, Tottenham Hotspur manager Antonio Conte has criticized football chiefs for putting players' health at risk with a relentless fixture schedule as the Italian battles his club's mounting injury list. Conte will be without Son Heung-min, Richarlison and Christian Romero for Sunday's Premier League match against Liverpool. Conte also has fitness doubts over Rodrigo Bentancur and Lucas Moura.
Schedule is really crazy, and honestly, also it's really strange that in England, and if we start to play 3 days after the final of the World Cup, we are the only country to do it. And then if you see Italy, France, Spain, and Portugal in all the countries, and they are taking time to give rest and to breathe a bit.
Still in London, Chelsea's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is excited for his Arsenal reunion when the two clubs face off in Sunday's London derby. But manager Graham Potter has called for the narrative to steer away from the striker as his side seek a morale-boosting victory. Aubameyang had a fallout with Arsenal and manager Mikel Arteta last season over disciplinary issues. He was first stripped of the captaincy and had his contract terminated ahead of a February move to Barcelona. The Gabon international scored 92 times in over 150 appearances for Arsenal and returned the Premier League in September, crossing to London Divide to sign for Chelsea. And that's a wrap on Sports News. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to Kaede with the wrap of the news at 10.
Well, thank you, Victor. And the main news again. The federal government today said that the number of displaced persons in the country has surged by 1 million owing to the recent flooding in parts of the country that has swelled IDP camps. And former U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to announce a 2024 presidential run after the country's midterm elections, and that's according to the U.S. media. And that's the news at 10 for tonight. What a week it has been. To have a restful weekend. Good night.